Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Happy Monday. I know, two words should not go together most any day, but welcome. Good morning, family. It is Monday. It is June the 15th. Flying by. We are going to go ahead and get started and making sure everybody got in the room okay. Looks like yes. So I do want to remind you of a couple of things. The first is you already know the drill about the chat feature. If you're on the Zoom call, chat your questions, comments in. If you are on YouTube Live and you have a question or comment, you can chat those in, and Julia will pull them over to Zoom for us. And if it's after the fact, you can go to auxiliary.uga.edu, click on the Auxiliary Connections tab, and then it's the survey and feedback link will take you to where you can leave your questions or comments. I also want to, and I'm throwing a monkey wrench into this all day today, so bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and just show you real quick what on the messages, auxiliary messages tab, you'll see the NACUFS conference, which starts tomorrow morning, and just wanted you to see that's where this is. Click on auxiliary messages, and then you'll also see a video that Chef Dawn from O House did on knife tips, which was recently added. So I know we've had several sessions where we've talked knives and had questions about knives, and that's where you want to go. Check out his video about the knives. But don't forget, NACUFS tomorrow morning. Go ahead and register. It's open for all of us. And NACUFS, National Association of College and University Food Services. So I'll stop now and turn it over to Randolph. Randolph, and I did not see a tortilla, so I'm thinking you did not bring a tortilla.
Yeah. Catherine, today is it's not a tortilla day. I've had several phone calls this morning where I explained to folks that I have a heavy heart today, and Tortilla Man doesn't have his big smile when my heart is this heavy, and it's heavy about what's going on in our country. I've been thinking about this particular session, I would say, since Wednesday of last week, thinking, what do I do? What's that next step in our facilitated discussion and our dialogue? And every day there was a piece that will come to me and say, okay, maybe we can talk about this, and maybe we can talk about that. And then the events in Atlanta over the weekend kind of just threw me off kilter a little bit. I woke up at about 2 o'clock this morning and said to myself, okay, I need to put something down and I do that a lot. I gather so much information, and sometimes I have to wiggle through that information and come to like one or two key things. And there was a video on YouTube that I saw. It was made by an organization called ACT. I don't know the organization. I've never heard of them before this. And it talked about systemic racism. So it put systemic racism into like a cartoon, and it explained it. And I watched it and I thought, you know what, that's a really good video. Maybe I can play it so that the auxiliary family can kind of get an opportunity to discuss it. But then, like in everything we do, we have to be mindful of all of the viewpoints that these external content that we don't create may be coming from, or the underlying implications that exist. So what I decided to do was read the comments under the video just to get a sense of whether or not it would be appropriate for me to bring this to our family and share. And I got a slap in the face when I read those comments. There was not a single good comment on there. And I decided to look at the timestamps of these comments just to see, well, maybe this is, old thinking. I believe people have moved past these kinds of thinking. And believe it or not, there were 2 days ago, 5 hours ago, 1 week ago, and it really hit me. There were some really vicious comments about what's going on in our country today. And then one of the comments mentioned a similar video that had been made as a rebuttal of this particular video. So I went and I watched it, and I'm not going to name the person who made that video, but the gentleman had a lot of points to make, and it really got me thinking that, number one, it put me in a really bad mental place because it's hurtful to see that people still think the way they think. It's hurtful to see that people can't recognize, or people just willfully refuse to recognize the realities that exist. But then beyond that, it's a little scary actually to also think about what would the potential blowbacks be after all of the protests have died down. And if you've been around diversity and inclusion like I have over the last 20 years, blowbacks happen. And the effects of blowbacks are really adverse on the communities that are being advocated for in the first place. So that's where I am today in my head. I am still trying to simmer down and understand. I lie in bed all night looking up at the window the ceiling because I couldn't sleep, just thinking about how do I personally change the space that we have, and how do we as an auxiliary family, we can't change America, but we can impact what happens in our space in America. And so my head is filled right now with a lot of thoughts about, what we can do, what I can personally do, and what can the people standing next to me do to change some of these narratives that right now aren't out there, but they're there. Right now, we see some strong solidarity in terms of the protests that are happening all around the world. And those are great, but there's some underlying things going on that are troubling and worrying. Before we jump in, I just wanted to make sure that we all, we're working. I chatted with Susan a little bit this morning. We are working to find the easiest way for the registration for the conference. We definitely want every single person in auxiliary services to participate in that opportunity and support NACOFs and support our team that's working behind the scenes to make this conference possible. So what we're trying to do, because I went and tried to register as well, had a little bit of a wait, and I've gotten a couple of emails from folks saying that they haven't been able to complete the process. So Susan and her team and us on the HR side, we're working as hard as we can to find a simplified way to get people registered so that they can participate in this particular conference. So look up in the Auxiliary Connections email tomorrow. We will have some simplified instructions. Again, we're looking at the possibility of registering people either in bulk or having one way to go through for our registration so that folks don't have to wait. We definitely want your participation tomorrow. So
I apologize for the YouTube. We're having some issues with YouTube getting us, well, I can't think of the word. My brain is not working. We're not live feed on YouTube for whatever reason. We've even called in Lene and the big guns, and so we're still trying to work on that. So we'll post this after the fact if we can't get the YouTube live, and we apologize if you tried to get on there on YouTube live and catch it and you missed us. I'm sorry.
Okay, and yeah, we are recording this interaction, so we'll be able to have this for those who can't access it at the moment. I'm going to share my screen so that we can start. All right. Hopefully you all can see my screen. Are we good to go with my screen, Catherine?
Yep, you're good.
All right. So we're back to our conversation talking about our discussion on diversity and inclusion. Again, it's It's partially in response to what's happening around our country today, but it's also in response to what we can do as a auxiliary family in really transforming our spaces, transforming the people who come to our spaces, and transforming not just the University of Georgia, but our piece of the state of Georgia as well. As always, we look at awareness, skills, and tools. That's what our subsequent presentations will be trying to address. We're going to stick a little bit with the awareness side again today. Just FYI, we are working on what I call an exciting lineup of folks who will be talking starting either next Monday or the following Mondays. We're getting some of what I call the heavy hitters here at UGA who can really speak to issues of diversity and inclusion. So we'll have some heavy hitters, is what I'm calling them, who can really talk about that and speak to that. But again, everything we do, we're going to try to ensure that we laden it with a little bit of skills, tools, as well as the awareness. Heavy on the awareness side, but keep an ear out for the skills and tools that we present as well. And no auxiliary service presentation is a good presentation. I'm really talking about thinking bigger, and it's not just how we think bigger operationally and from that business model, but also thinking bigger in how we address the issues at hand and the problems that we face, both nationally and locally. Always making people first, regardless of race, gender, color, socioeconomic status, pay grade, title, making sure that we interact with people. And people first, again, isn't just what the management does with our individual contributors, is what we all do with each other as a unit. And then our bubble organization, but the variation of the bubble organization that really allows all of us to come around a table and address an issue and have a discussion, a productive discussion about an issue that is fundamental to how we move forward as a family. You all seen this? I've added a few more individuals. So I'll go over the ones that I had at first, and then I'll explain the additions. So we were talking about in our conversations, there would be people who are the first responders. They feel a need to say something, they feel a need to act, and we use the accident analogy. You're driving on the road and you see a car and there's an accident, and you have those people who are the first responders. They have to stop and make sure everybody is okay. And then we also, so in our conversation, we'll have people who feel a need to address something or say something. Don't hold yourself back and do that person. And the reason for that is because we need these kinds of people to be able to prompt the conversation and prompt the dialogue. Are we okay, Catherine?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was.
Okay, just checking and making sure. And then we had what I call the nice folks, right? So the nice folks are down there. Nice folks are people who will, they will stop and say, "You okay? Is there anything I can do? Can I call 911?" And in our conversation, these are people who, they're not directly involved. They're not a first responder, but they're good enough because based on their values, they're good enough folks to say, "I need to do something about this, so I'm going to ask about what can I do." Then I talked last week about the creepy crawlers. These are people who their windows are still rolled up and they're slowed down to see what's happening in an accident without really calling 911 or asking if you're okay or even getting directly involved. They want to know what's going on, but they really don't want any participation in what's going on. I've added 3 more groups, and if you find yourself in one of these groups, I also want to recognize you. So there are the timekeepers. Now the whole concept of timekeepers comes from, again, what I read this morning out of those comments that I saw. So there were people on those comments that were saying, "I can't wait for all this movement thing to be over, right? I'm so sick and tired of this movement being over." And it touched me in a way that a lot of the other comments haven't touched me before, because my first mind went to imagine what a Black person has felt like for many, 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 many years, waiting for there to be equality and justice and the like. And so there are timekeepers. If you are a timekeeper and you're on this conversation today, I ask that you just pause your clock for a second, and I ask that you just open your ears and your heart and your mind to listen. And even if you don't have a response, just listen. And that to me will be 100% more than we can get from others who are timekeepers. So if you're part of our auxiliary family and in your private personal life, you are truly a timekeeper, pause that for a second and open your ears to listen to some of the conversations today. Then there are the accidenters. And the accidenters basically are people who, actually the accidenters and the I knowers are kind of the same. So the accidenters are people who have been in an accident before. So they understand what it means to be there. You know, I know what it means when you go through this. I know what it means when this has happened to you. Hey, you know what? I thought I was the only person who have felt this way or who have experienced that. And the reason why I separated them is because being an accident, oh, that has happened to me, and moving on. And being an I knower, you know what, it's happened to me. These were the emotions that I felt. These were the actions that I took, are two different things in that one really trumps a little more than just saying, I've experienced that before and I can move on. So just moving on real quickly, our interaction today it's a dialogue. It's not a debate. Again, we're going to unmute the lines. We're going to encourage people to participate. We ask that you listen and you respect each other. And then the last point there is making sure you seek understanding first rather than just to be understood. As I've thought through this even more, one of the things that I've thought about doing is setting out an open call. Now, you know, for a lot of what we do on Auxiliary Connections, most managers are strongly encouraging their folks to participate. In order to do a true and genuine dialogue, these 10 a.m. sessions can give us a bigger perspective of what we need to talk about and think about and the actions that are required from us. What they don't do is give us a depth of discussion. And I think as a unit and as a family, we need that depth of discussion. One that isn't mandatory, one that isn't forcing anybody to come, one that is completely open. And so what we're going to do this week, starting Wednesday, we're going to set up a 12 o'clock hour. This is not something we're going to publicize or publish or make a big fanfare about. You will, in our Auxiliary Connections email, there will be a link that says, if you want a deeper dive into these conversations, join the session here. There'll be a session link there. And it will just be us, Auxiliary family, just really digging and diving. Now, those sessions are going to be slightly different in that the way I'm going to facilitate them, I am going to bring almost in every single instance the two opposing views of an issue. And we're going to really talk about where those views come from, how true they are, how inaccurate they are, and what's the middle ground, but what's the middle action that we in auxiliaries can do moving forward. So look forward to the email tomorrow that will have that link for those deeper dive conversations is what I'm calling them. And again, it's completely voluntary. It's almost like we have somebody in HR, Robin, who said to me the other day, for 40 something years, I've had lunch at 12 o'clock. She's working from home and she is still having lunch at 12 o'clock today. So grab your lunch at 12 o'clock, come and sit and have a deeper dive, a deeper conversation with us. And again, for now, we will focus on the issue of race. Eventually, we'll continue to have those conversations and we'll broaden up the diversity thematic areas a little bit more. But if you really want a deeper dive, a facilitated conversation about race, 12 o'clock Wednesdays would be where we would go. It's just a 1 hour lunch session that will open to anybody. Bring your family, invite your friends. But for now, let's just start with our auxiliary team to build a level of confidence. All right. So today, I wanted to throw a few questions out there just for us to start thinking through. So the first one is, how truly open are you? How truly open am I to those from different cultural, socioeconomic, and religious backgrounds. What's my own cultural conditioning? And for example, what are those values that affect how I behave and communicate with others? And what are some of the core beliefs that I hold that have been culturally influenced? What's my word? Now, most of you know I'm from Monrovia, Liberia. My wife is from right outside, she's from Fort Deposit, Alabama, right outside of Greenville, Alabama, and about 35 minutes from Montgomery, Alabama. Believe it or not, our worldviews coming together were different. Even now, our worldviews continue to be different in terms of how she sees some things and how I see some things. And are those always in consonance? Absolutely not. Sometimes those worldviews clash. The ability to be able to see the differences in the worldview and be able to work together and live together and maintain some sort of respect for both of those views. It's an acquired skill that I would encourage every single one of us to continue to work on. How do I know, how much do I know about my coworkers? How much do I know about their cultural backgrounds? What am I missing, and how do I get some of the information that I think I'm missing? Catherine, I want us to open the lines up a little bit and see if there are people who are really interested in attacking one or a couple of those questions.
Okay. Julia said you guys did this last week. I wasn't here for that one, but how did you have folks raise their hand? How did you?
Yeah, they can raise their hand. If folks are comfortable putting something in the comment box, we ask them, we encourage them to do that. Julia will read those as well. Okay.
Real quick, well, I don't see anybody hand up yet, but one of the questions was the, as far as the Wednesday session at 12, is that going to be a part of the email, the regular email, daily email for that Wednesday, or will that be a separate invite?
It will actually be on the email for Wednesday. It will be a link that you can just go and click on should you choose to participate. Again, what's key about this is that this is not mandatory. No manager should tell you you have to be a part of these discussions. We want people who are open and willing to really just digging a little deeper below the surface, being able to really test their ability to hear two very divergent viewpoints and still leave a room respectful of these viewpoints, but having learned some of the whys behind people's actions. So again, not a mandatory thing. It will be on the Wednesday email. It's a link that you'll just be able to click and join us at noon for those conversations.
Okay. Still not seeing any raised hand yet or question. Oh, here we go. Hang on.
Morgan, I see your hand. Morgan is always one of our first responders. I admire that, Morgan. I absolutely do.
Hello again.
Good morning.
So yeah, one of the reasons I hadn't raised my hand already is I was trying to figure out how to tackle some of these questions because they're all pretty big questions and might take the whole hour just for one person to answer them for them oneself. So that wouldn't really be workable. But in response to what you were saying about, first responder, I definitely kind of notice in myself that war between being a first responder and I guess, nice person would be the next stage down. Because there's definitely times where I have found that I've taken too much on myself because I don't know how to say no to people who need me or to parse how much people actually need me or if they just need someone, I don't know. So I definitely have found myself in a position where I can't help someone I really need to be able to help because I have told too many people I didn't need to help that I could help them. And so that's something I've been trying to work on myself. Yeah. You want to ask me any specific questions off here?
Well, I mean, if you want to address one of the questions, that would be good.
Sure.
Maybe describe your worldview.
That's the one that may take a long time. I'll spend a minute on my cultural conditioning and how I am different from that, I guess.
Okay, go ahead.
I was raised by Southern Baptist, Republican, Christian conservative, very not explicitly, but generally very stereotypical for what you think of when you think about all those things. Like, you know, two families that came from Georgia that met each other, both big families, that just like all those things wrapped into one. And I came out of that. But even as a young kid, there were so many cultural dissonance moments between like, wait, they're saying that, but they're acting this way. Or they're saying that, but in my own head, I know for a fact that what they're saying is wrong. So obviously there's some disconnect here. I can't just take everything my parents say with face value. I need to start researching myself. And because I had that like kernel of knowing for a fact that everything they said wasn't true, some of the things they said were true. Some of the things they said were half true. A lot of the things they said they thought were true and just weren't, and they didn't have any experience to say otherwise, and they didn't seem interested in experiences to see otherwise or whatever. So definitely by the time I got to high school, I was like actively seeking out people who had nothing to do with my parents' worldview and like trying to learn from them to like, you know, get new experiences. And that carried me on into college, where I actually started meeting people instead of just wanting to meet people that were like that. And so like college is where I met my first openly gay people and my first openly trans people and people who were pagan and people who were actually atheists, as opposed to, well, I'm not sure God is exactly the way that the Baptists say it. It's more like the Catholics say it. Like that was the closest I met to atheists before college. And so, like it definitely, my internal sense of the rightness of some of what they said and the utter wrongness of other things kind of like prepared me for that ongoing journey of I constantly need to be learning from other people.
Thanks, Morgan. I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate the perspective you bring, the prompting of these conversations, and the self-reflection. A lot of us have a very difficult time self-reflecting, probably because we don't know what to look for, or we wouldn't like what we see when we do that. But I encourage each of us to be open and honest with ourselves as we self-reflect. Catherine, do we have any comments or any other hands before we move on?
Yeah, one comment said, I believe I have fundamentally misapplied a very famous MLK quote over time: judge not by the color of one's skin, but by the content of one's character. That does not mean to not consider race or to see colorblind, which is a point of self-reflection for me.
That's hang on, before I don't want to lose that. I really don't want to lose that, because that is such an astute point. Because color blindness in its essentialness basically means that you don't see me, or that there is something about me and the color of my skin that has to be dissolved in order for you to see what else is there. The problem with that is that I am a Black man, period. There's no apologies that I make for that. And so I want you to see that. And I want you to understand that my history and my lived experience as a Black man, that when I interact with you, whereas I want you to judge me on the content of my character, I want you to see all of that inside of me as the package that I bring. And we talked a little bit about intersectionality last week and its importance. But again, whoever put that comment in, I really appreciate you sharing that, because that is a very often, very commonly mistaken quote where people dissolve what people look like on the outside in order to find what they think are the good things on the inside. There's nothing wrong with my Blackness. It is a good part of me.
That was Chris Fagan.
Thanks, Chris.
Ellie said, I feel like I'm very open to people from different backgrounds. I like to learn more about others, and I'm pretty open to conversations about differences between us.
We need more of those. We need more open communication. We need more seeking questions, not telling somebody, but seeking questions. That's the only way we build our intercultural literacy.
Chef Don said it's that have always been interested in where people come from, but the last several years I've been corrected several times. You can't ask that. and not being politically correct.
So before you even move on, let's tackle that. Let's tackle that. If
Okay.
anybody tells you that you can't ask somebody where are they from, then they're missing the point. I'm from Monrovia, Liberia. I want you to ask where I'm from because there's an interesting part of me that you may see here at UGA that you don't know how I made it to UGA and what my worldview is and what my historical perspectives are and what my lived experience is. So people talk about being politically correct, and what they do is it's almost the equivalent of you have a mosquito that sits on your hand and you decide you're going to get your pistol and shoot that mosquito. No, that's not a logical thing to do. So there's nothing wrong with asking somebody where they're from. What ends up happening is this issue of microaggression, because the more say an Asian American, right? You see an Asian American, the initial assumption that person is not an American, and so you're going to ask them where they're from is where things become problematic. It's not about political correctness. You can still ask the question. You can still come out and say, hey, tell me a little bit about your background, right? That's not question. That's not directly asking somebody where they're from. It's asking them a little bit more of what makes them who they are. Definitely, you would hear a little bit of where they're from in the response to that. But I don't want people to feel like in order to, and that's one of the reasons why people don't engage in dialogue, because they're too afraid of political correctness. And so they come and they don't ask the questions, or they're too afraid to ask the questions. Hey, tell me about your background. Tell me about growing up. You know, tell me how did you end up here at UGA? You know, those are the kinds of questions that open up rather than where are you from? Because where are you from has an inherent, you don't belong here or you're not from here. No, it's you know, tell me about yourself. Tell me about how you got here to UGA. What's that story? You know, what's your journey and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
Any other comments or hands?
I think it had that also could have been part of, you know, it's part of the interview process. Things you shouldn't ask in the interview process.
But trust me, towards the end of the presentation, I have something from a book I've read by Dr. Mara Collins, and it talks about 35 dumb questions well-intentioned people ask. So I'll post that up so you see some of those questions.
Morgan says, if you can't see color, you can't see patterns.
Yeah.
And Tara said, it depends on the person and how you're framing your questions and about where they're from.
Yeah.
Anthony said, the worst thing that you can say to a person of color is to say that you don't see color.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Joanne said,
now, Anthony, just understand there's some worse things you can say. Hopefully people don't say that, but it's a terrible thing to say.
Joanne said, I feel that the older I get, the more open I become. I realize that I can learn so much from others knowingly or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then Morgan said open-ended questions. Darnell has referenced Amazon Prime having a very good series of documentaries on racism in America.
Mm-hmm. Let's stop right there for a second. Let's stop right there, because that, Darnell, it's almost like we planned it, Darnell. But that right there, it's a good segue into where I want us to go next. We're gonna pass these questions a little bit. And again, I want you to continue asking yourself these questions for self-reflection. But I had an interaction, or my family had an interaction over the last couple of days that left me with this thinking, and I came up with in my mind, I came up with this question or this statement that I thought would be great for us to even talk about. And it has a lot to do in one way with what Darnell was saying. Not just does Amazon have a list, even on Netflix, there is a whole, they've put together a collection of movies and documentaries that I say, yeah, I know you all like Tiger King or whatever is it called? What is it called? Is it Tiger King?
I guess.
Oh man.
I'm clearly not down with
Oh, you gotta get up to culture. But I think over the time people have been watching Tiger King. I say pause your Tiger King binge a little bit and go and look for that package of really historical documentaries, historical movies that speak to the experience of what African Americans and Black people have gone through. In conversation with Katrina this morning, we were talking about Just Mercy and how she enjoyed that movie. So let me get to the next slide, just in the interest of time. I want to put the statement out there, and I want to hear what we have to say about it, and then I'll show you a commercial, not a video, quick video that Procter and Gamble plays together that really touched me, that I would love to share. But it's difficult to truly stand with me without a genuine acknowledgement of my history and my lived experience. So there's a lot of standing with going on right now, and I applaud. I'm so grateful for the space that the standing with has created. I came to America 22 years ago, and it's only in this time and in this moment that there is an ability to talk about being Black that has never ever happened before. And that's because there's a lot of standing with going on. There's a lot of consciousness that has changed over time. Now, somebody may say, but why is it that I haven't known about all of this before? There's one small phrase that in my mind has summed out why there hasn't been a lot more knowledge and there hasn't been a lot more acknowledgement of this before, and it's called the race card. And African Americans for a very long time have been trying to explain what injustices look like. But unfortunately, the place that people always run in order to not address those injustices, not address those microaggressions, those innuendos, those slight, or those flat out racism, is by saying, now you're pulling and you're playing the race card. And so that phrase, the race card, was almost like a muzzle, right, that has been placed on people, because you don't want to talk about what's happening based on your perspective as a Black person, because the rebuttal will always be, now you're about to play the race card. And I will tell you, that has been a difficult place to be in terms of always being muzzled when you feel discriminated against because you don't want to be accused of the race card. But any comments, thoughts, questions? I would love to hear from somebody verbally on where this statement resonates with them, or if it doesn't, I want to hear from folks who say, I really don't see this, I really don't understand this doesn't make much sense for me, or it does, but I'm unclear. We want to hear from you. So I see Michael's hand. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Oh, I'm unmuting. Good morning, Randolph. Good morning, everybody. I wanted to make a mention or speak to this quote and to something you just said. You mentioned that you came to America 22 years ago. That's relevant only in that I was just considering that this is the 25th year anniversary of the Rodney King riots. Mm-hmm. And that's a subject that I was talking with my son about. Am I still here? Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Sorry. The Rodney King riots were something. I grew up in Southern California. So in 1991, an African-American gentleman was beaten nearly to death by the LAPD. It was a group of, I want to say, 8 to 12 LAPD members who were videotaped beating this man to death, nearly to death, and joking about it throughout. They're on audio tape. You can hear them joking about them, saying, I've never beaten a man this badly. Ha, ha, ha. Those men then went on trial and were all set free. They were all found not guilty, and we had the Rodney King riots. And I remember at that point being an 11-year-old boy and thinking, this is a pivotal point. We are moving in a direction that will never shift back. The momentum is now moving in a direction that people have to perceive reality. Because when we talk about a movement, it's not a movement, it's reality. This movement will never go away. It's reality seeking a balance, seeking people to pay attention, because it's our ignorance that allows this thing to happen. And then during that Rodney King riot, the other half of that was the Reginald Denny story, because Reginald Denny was a white man, a trucker, who was pulled out of his truck and also nearly beaten to death by a group of rioters. And the titular moment of that experience was seeing Rodney King and Reginald Denny standing next to each other saying, why can't we just get along? We are all one people. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And it didn't ever make any sense. And it still doesn't make any sense, because in the end, it's just our ignorance. Education and genuine curiosity about the human experience are the things that set us free. And the more that we learn about the people around us, the more we can genuinely learn about ourselves and love ourselves and support the whole world. Because, I mean, we're all one organism. I feel like COVID-19 has shown that your illness becomes my illness and your ignorance becomes my ignorance, unless we're actively seeking to learn more about ourselves.
Michael, that was well said. I wish, and it's one of those things where people say really poignant things, and then you ask them, can you say that again? And then they're like, what did I just say?
No, not a chance.
I really want you, if you could, just repeat that statement about education and genuine interest in the human experience. If you can repeat that, I would love for you to say that again, because it's such a poignant statement.
It's truly, I believe, curiosity that sets us free. When I grew up in a very different education system. I remember at ages 9 and 10 learning about the Trail of Tears. That was a huge part of my life, learning about the Native American history, the Trail of Tears. And I came to Georgia at age 12, 13, and those were fresh topics on my mind. And I'm like, here I am. I'm in Georgia. This is the beginning of the Trail of Tears. And I remember talking to my classmates, because I thought that that was something that everybody talked about, because that was what we were learning in 6th grade. And I moved here. Nobody knew what the Trail of Tears was here in Georgia. And still I speak to people and I see it all over the place. People aren't aware. The Trail of Tears was a forced march of Native Americans out of Georgia, wherein 5,000 men, women, and children died marching to Oklahoma. And that was all done by President Andrew Jackson. These kinds of bits of knowledge are so crucial to just understand your surroundings. Start with a local level. Understand the history of Baldwin Hall. Understand the history of Skull Shoals. Understand the history of UGA, Athens, and to go back not just 400 years, but try your best to go back 10,000 years and understand the incredible depth of the human experience. Because we have been human beings on this planet for 250,000 years. And we have only begun to look different from one another in the last 70,000 years. If you go back 80,000 years, we all pretty much look alike. But it's only after we start expanding across the globe and being in such different environments that we ourselves change to adapt to those environments. And then it's like we point our fingers at each other and say, you changed too much. No. We're all human beings.
I appreciate the comments, Michael. I really do. And join us on Wednesday if you can for the discussion.
I will.
For those who don't know Michael, you'll get an opportunity to meet him a bit tomorrow when he talks about a day in the life of an auxiliary employee with 2 of our dining colleagues. Catherine, do we have any other comments before we move on?
Oh, lots. We're never going to get done with your presentation. It's going to be the one that goes forever. That's okay. I did see where, hang on, let me go back and find, I don't want to, Anthony had said he would be unmuted. So hang on one second. Let me find. Well, where did you go, Anthony? Okay.
We see Anthony.
Huh?
He's unmuted. Go ahead, Anthony.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing great this morning.
Can you adjust your camera a little, Anthony? All we see is the top of your head. There
I know it. I'm sitting here and I try not to be seen too often, but here I am.
There you go.
First of all, I truly appreciate this particular type of discussion because I'm born and raised here in the South, 61 years old. I have 3 adult sons. And all through life, raising those boys up, I had to raise them totally different than any other, especially from the white race, just in terms of how you're supposed to carry yourself when you're out and about. And with all the events that have been going on thus, with the country right now, in spite of COVID-19, but what we've seen, I too felt like you felt, Randolph. My heart has been broken. It makes you just feel like, God, is this really the world that I'm a part of? But at my age, I've known about this stuff for many, many years. And you talked about how when I would start to share, people I would say, oh, Lord, now you're pulling the race card. And that was just the norm. But as I continued to mature and get older, I got to the point where I didn't allow that to stop me from talking. And most people that know me and know me well, I talk about this all the time. This is not just out in the streets, public like it is today, but it's also in our houses of worship. I'm a member of a diverse congregation. The dominant culture in my church is the white experience. And if you look in some of the comments, and I've seen this, Robin DiAngelo, education is the key. So that's what I wanted to say. You have to educate yourself. I don't claim to know all the Black history that I need to know, but I actually went back on a whole journey of educating myself, because honestly, I didn't see the white experience until it was really written well, but there are videos and everything else that show you there is a white experience. And this lady paints a picture of a true systemic racism, or a system that has been in place. I once heard one person say, imagine yourself about to run the 100-yard dash, 100-yard, well, you can tell my age, 100 meters. Mm-hmm. For a Black person, we may start at the 100-meter mark, or we may start 10, 15, 20 yards behind that. From a white person's standpoint, with the white perspective, and there's nothing wrong with how you were brought up. Nothing. I'm not complaining about that. But you may be 20 to 30 yards in front of everybody else. When I went to work for Athens Clarke County in 1982, we came into a system that had about 167, I believe, employees. And of that 167 employees, only 10 people, there were only 10 Black people that were a part of that system. They made the biggest hire they were ever going to make. They had 37 positions that came available. And when those positions came available, there was only, according to what they said, only one Black person qualified for one of those positions. So the 10 guys that was there got together, got some people together. They went and talked to the powers that be, and they kind of split it down the middle. So they made that number go up to 17. And then they met with us at an off-place site from the department, told us what was going on, told us how we had to compete. But I'm telling this story because what happened was the system has been in place for a long time. The probation period at the time was 6 months. However, when they brought that many Black guys on board, they went from 6 months to 12 months. You only had to maintain like a 70 percentile score on all the testing and stuff. But then it was changed to say that if you fail one test, you were no longer considered a candidate. So I said all that to say, these are the kind of obstacles and stuff that has been in place. And I've seen this throughout my whole life. When I came to University of Georgia as a freshman at UGA, I was in a psychology 101 class where they do the lecture, and there's 350 kids and me. And as big as I am, I never thought I would be terrified of something like that, but I was just totally terrified of that. And I literally dropped the class and walked away from it. I would like to tell you I thought, it's going to be all right. But that's another part of my life that, I've really been blessed over the years to work hard, get promoted, do different things. I'm retired from Athens Clarke County Fire Department, came to UGA in July of last year. I'm about to make my first year with transportation.
Yeah.
But I'm
Hey,
seeing a lot, and these are discussions that we're having with groups of people where we're getting gut level, honest, and open. I got white friends. We're talking about this on a regular basis, and I think this is the key.
thank you, Anthony. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I've got a few other slides I wanted us to talk about real quickly, but I appreciate you sharing. Again, join us at our Wednesday deeper discussion. I'm saying we have an hour on that discussion. We may edge it as close to our 2 p.m. sessions as we can. We're going to keep it open and let things flow where people's schedules can allow. Catherine, I saw another hand that was, I don't remember who it was now, that I didn't want to miss.
I believe it was Chris Render.
Yes, it was.
Chris Render, you are live, or you can unmute yourself and be live.
Morning, Chris.
Maybe. Oh, he said that was a mistake.
All right, no problem, no problem. Listen, I'm going to advance us a little bit. I'm going to actually show a quick video because I don't want to miss that. Because this video was several things in this video, and it's an ad campaign that Procter and Gamble has been doing that really prompts discussion. And so I'm going to play this. Let me stop my share real quickly and play it for you all. It meant a lot to me because it is a part of my shared experience. So I'm going to stop the share, and I have to tell you all that video tears me up every time because that is a part of my lived experience. I remember very vividly being in Barcelona with my family, and we were at a very fancy hotel. We had a wonderful time. We had driven all over Spain. We went down to Marbella and just had a great time. And we, just before we were flying back, we came back to Barcelona. Actually, we had been through Geneva, and it was just a great time. We came back and we were at this. We always do this when we travel in our summer travel. We haven't traveled this summer, so my toes are itching to go somewhere. But our last night abroad, we always make it our fanciest night. So we were at a really, really fancy hotel, and it had this pool area that was just incredibly beautiful. And so my wife, daughter, and I came down to the pool area Um, and we entered the pool area, and the looks that we had was just devastating. But we didn't care. We had paid to be there. We had every right to be there. And we weren't going to let a look take us away. And we got in the pool. Just the reaction from the people who were in the pool, it was as if we had contaminated the whole area. It was very devastating. And I will tell you, we stayed in the pool, and just like you see the gentleman there stared back, I did that. I stared directly at some of the people who were looking at us, because I wanted to make this statement that my family and I had every single right to be there. We've never been back to that particular hotel, but that was far away. I also remember an experience in Monroe, Georgia. We'd gone to church with a family and decided that we were going to do Sunday brunch with them. And so we come back to this establishment. It's on Spring Street in Monroe, Georgia. It's no longer there. Obviously, it was a place that a lot of people went for Sunday brunches. And we got there before our friends. They had to stop along the way. And we entered the door, and it was as if the whole restaurant stopped and looked at us. And sometimes, you live in a world where you just expect equality. And so we actually were shocked by that. And so Latasha and I looked at each other like, okay. And we literally backed out of the restaurant and stood outside and waited for our friends until they came. And then we all walked back in. We wanted to go back in because we had a right to be in that restaurant as well. And we went in, and we sat there, and we ate the food with our friends. We did tell our friends what had transpired before they came in, and our friends were white, and they were very sorry about it. Why am I telling you all of this? I know I see Morgan's hand. I see a couple of comments. We'll close this piece here, and we'll start again. We'll continue next week. But I had to share some of the things that are on my heart, because for most of you, we have to educate ourselves. We have to be able to go back and look at history. And the difficulty with looking at history is that people then feel like somebody's casting blame on you. I'm not casting any blame on anyone for that. But I want you to understand the pathway through which some of the struggles have come, the places that people go through, and then the everyday lived experience that is still deeply rooted in those historical contexts that African Americans and other minority groups, underrepresented minorities, are living every single day. But I have hope. I have hope. And my hope is, what if, when people come to our spaces in auxiliaries, that we're not dragging over those historical things. We're not replicating these microaggressions. We're not exclusionary to people. We're welcoming them. We're making them feel a part of the family. Most of you who know me know that about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, in my home, my family and I were we were a foster family, and we had 4 little boys. And when they came to us, the eldest was 5. The one next to him was 3. The one next to him was a year and a half. And the youngest one,
No, Randolph, did you freeze? Oh no. Randolph? And he's on campus today. Not sure what happened. if I'm remembering correctly, Ellie, the youngest was teeny, like really young, just a few months old. They were very close in age. Oh, he's back. I see him. Hang on. All right, go.
All right, real quickly for those who can stay, what was most important for us.
Wait, go back because you lost us at 1.5 years, and then you didn't say how old the youngest was, and you got to go back, you rewind yourself, and go back to that.
Real quickly, youngest, 1.5 years was the second youngest, and then the youngest was 3 months old. And those 9 months that those boys stayed with us, and again, they were all white, they were all brothers. The 9 months that they stayed with us was one of the best times, hard times because taking care of 4 babies is not easy, but one of the best times where we felt more fulfilled in our calling to do something different and to be different, but to be there for a vulnerable or for vulnerable kids that did not choose where they were born or the families that they were born to or the circumstances that they were born in. And I remember my wife one day holding the baby and saying that, you know, she had never imagined loving somebody else's baby as much as she loved the little guy. Just the boys are doing very fine today. They're with, you know, like grandmom. We follow them on Facebook and catch up and see how well they're doing. It brings joy to us. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because if you're still on this call, here's what you need to know. It's not what you say that matters. It's not these statements that we're making that change and transform things. They're important in themselves. But what I will tell you is your actions that count, the differences you make that count, the people who you invite to your dinner tables and your brunch tables and your breakfast table that counts. The most difficult time we had in taking care of those boys wasn't the physical work of taking care of them. It was how people treated us because we had those boys. People were rude, people were mean, people told us we had no business taking care of them, but we stayed strong. I have hope. I'm torn with what's going on around us, but I have hope, I have faith that in auxiliary services, we can make a difference, first for one another, and then for the culture, our students, our faculty, our staff, our visitors that are coming to our spaces. I look forward to the sessions tomorrow. I also look forward to the continuation of this conversation, both on Wednesday and next Monday. Thank you again for your patience, for going a little bit over. Take care, and you all have my phone numbers and emails. Continue to be in touch. Catherine, I'm going to turn things back over to you.
Okay, I was just going to say this afternoon at 2 o'clock is improving the value of your time. So that's going to be at 2 o'clock. Please join us for that. And then tomorrow, like Randolph said, tomorrow is the first installment of our day in the life of an auxiliary employee. So be sure and come back and join us for that tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Please let us know if you need anything. We are here for you, and we are family. So we've got your back. You need anything, you let us know. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.